Greetings to you, my lovely listener, from wherever you are and whenever you're listening to this. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, and you're listening to The Whitfield Report, brought to you by AmericanWatchman.org and TapeWrite.com. And as always, folks, you can go over to AmericanWatchman.org to read my columns, and you can go to my website at thesamwhitfield.com to read my personal blog posts and to get in contact with me over there. And I want to thank you for listening to the show. Today my guest is Kasey Dynneson. He is a young conservative, a fellow college Republican, He's quite a great live streamer, folks, as the term goes. He does lots of YouTube live streams, and I don't know if he ever plans on going professional with YouTube, but he puts together some great panels of young conservatives, and not only conservatives, but other minds in the political arena, kind of independent talkers, such as myself, and he's just a really great guy. And I've been on his panels for the past couple weeks. We've been talking about the hot elephant in the room this week is Milo Yiannopoulos and that whole big controversy. So I was on his YouTube channel earlier this week talking about that. And I asked him last night, because we were in one on Friday night, I asked him, I said, hey man, do you want to come on my podcast, The Whitfield Report? And he said, yeah. So Kasey and I sat down earlier this afternoon to talk about Milo Yiannopoulos and the whole controversy around that. We talked pretty in depth about that, gave both of our opinions on that. And then we also talked about the Republican Party as a general, how the new sect of the right and the alternative right is kind of growing, and what that really means to be alt-right, because it's not what CPAC thinks it means. They may have said that CPAC is a hate group, but trust me, folks, the definition is too damn broad for that. And so Kasey and I talked a little bit about Milo. We talked about the alt-right. This episode, folks, is going to be a 2-part episode because we just covered a lot of topics. We covered the DNC and just a whole bunch of great stuff. I really enjoyed having him on, and I think you're going to enjoy my interview with him. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the one and only Kasey Dynneson. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Whitfield Report podcast. Joining me now is Mr. Kasey Dynneson, and he is another young conservative, college Republican, and an all-around good guy. And Kasey has a YouTube channel, and he's invited me on some live streams. And this past week, We've been talking a lot about Milo Yiannopoulos on those live streams with a group of various individuals, and I figure since Kasey is part of the Young Republicans, I would invite him on to really discuss his take on the whole Milo situation and just conservative politics in general. So, Kasey, thank you for coming on the program. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So anyway, so there's been a lot of controversy surrounding Milo Yiannopoulos, and I know we've talked about this a bunch on your stream slash YouTube show, whatever you want to call it, this past week. But it's kind of nuts because it seemed like we had some semblance of unity prior to right after the election, and now with the whole Milo thing, and him getting disinvited from CPAC and whatnot, it kind of seems like we're kind of starting to split apart again. So what's kind of your whole take on this thing? And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you also meet Milo at one point?
I did meet Milo about a year or so ago when he stopped here in Minnesota at the on his lecture tour, or I guess just his overall performance tour. But yeah, I met him. He was really cool to me. It was kind of nice to meet him. But my take on this really comes down to, I don't think we're splitting. I just think there is a certain contingent that just seems really focused on him. And this kind of boils down to the Never Trump Brigade. That's kind of been, they've never gone away, but they've never admitted defeat either. That's just my take on it. And it's a little annoying, to be honest with you, because Milo's probably done more for conservatism or just the right in general than, I think he said it best. He's done more for the right than the majority of the people that are against him have been doing for 30 years.
Yeah, I would kind of have to agree with that. I mean, look, my whole thing is the Never Trump movement has driven me crazy from day one, and it's partially because back when the campaign started in 2015, and we had 17 candidates, I had written a blog post on my website, pretty much saying, look, we have, at the time it was 15, and then I guess 2 more jumped in, so it was 17, and I said, look, we have a whole bunch of candidates. I think we have too many personally. But I know for certain that Hillary Clinton is going to get the nomination, and one thing I will guarantee you is that I will vote for whoever is running against Hillary Clinton, because if we don't, we lose. And I said at the time, I'm not that big of a fan of Donald Trump personally, but if he is, through some miracle, the party nominee, then I'll vote for him. And I said that back in 2015, right? So, then when when Trump got the nomination, I was like, I'm sticking by my word. And, all of these Never Trumpers, I guess the thing that kind of pissed me off was, they began lecturing me about how I had no morality as a conservative because I was, voting for Trump, and all of that happy bull crap. And I had said, again, I'm not even that big of a fan of Trump at the time, but I was just supporting him. And it got to the point where the Never Trump movement got so bad that they actually, they made me fans of Trump, because it was like, okay, so you're going to get pissed off at me. I'm going to go buy a MAGA hat just to piss you off some more. And it but before you know it, I ended up becoming like a Trump fanboy just to spite them. And, that whole thing was stupid. And then, I mean, I don't know, I guess the thing with Milo, prior to this latest thing, I really I really liked him because to me it seemed like he was actually fighting back against, the radical left and kind of playing at their level, whereas all of these other, conservative pundits were like, we can't stoop down to their level, and it's like, well, why not? If they're hitting us, we should at least be able to like defend ourselves, and if they're trolling us, we should be able to give them a taste of their own medicine and troll them back, because that's the only kind of response that these leftists understand. And I mean, I don't know, just the whole never Trump thing just kind of pissed me off. And with this latest thing that happened, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with you that they're at fault. So,
well, it's not even just that. It's the fact that it's the lack of grace in defeat. That's what really gets me. That was like a defining characteristic that I kind of respected the right for, even when I was more centrist in my approach to politics. I always respected the right's ability to concede defeat, at least on some level. They'd still fight with the positions they have, but they would concede defeat when they were beaten. That doesn't seem to be happening anymore. Again, it's not just the never Trumpers. You also have the left that's doing it, but it was always a point of pride for the Republicans that they would concede defeat and they would be graceful about it. But they're not doing that anymore. They're lashing out errantly at anyone that supported Trump and in general. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it is ridiculous, and honestly, I don't really understand why they're lashing out either, because it's like, hey, whether you like Trump or not, like, and granted, he's not a perfect candidate, but none of them are, and it's like, I'd rather have someone who were a little more risky on the Republican side than someone like Hillary, who is completely off her rocker in terms of just a radical agenda.
Yeah. Well, yeah, go ahead.
And I mean, the ironic thing for me during the election was I actually spent more time fighting never Trumpers, supposedly conservative allies of mine, who were never Trump, as opposed to liberals, who I was opposed to, and I'm just curious, I can't imagine I was the one that that did that. I mean, I guess what kind of drove you to? I'm assuming did you vote for Trump? And
I did. At the end of the day, it didn't really matter because the issue. Minneapolis, the city I live in, is so blue that it actually, and it's so densely populated that it actually flips the entire state, which is an issue. So, I mean, if you look at the map and you look at what the counties that really were listening to Trump, it wasn't these big states or these big cities, which that was bound to happen. But yeah, I voted for Trump. And yeah, I did encounter a lot of never Trump people prior to this, and most of them were of a certain generation. Most of them were of, oddly enough, the same generation as Trump, the boomers. And I find that fascinating to me. But that's just me, because theoretically, Trump is everything that they would want in a Republican, or at least a Republican candidate on some level. But he also was a good party grower in terms of the younger crowd, because was an openly a self-admitted pro-LGBT candidate. Going into office, he was like that. Unlike Barack Obama, who quote unquote evolved over time. So, I mean, it's just the Never Trump movement makes me annoyed, just because we're still talking about them a good month into his presidency. a good 2 months after the election. We're still talking about them, and a good almost 4 months since Cruz dropped out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I mean, they keep popping up too. That's the annoying thing. From where I sit is, they keep popping up, and I don't want to name names, but there are even like some younger quote unquote conservatives like ourselves who are on the never Trump side.
Well, if you don't have to name names, but can you give me are they published? Because I think I know who you're talking about, but
yeah. Well, there's that one guy from Wisconsin who, was a young conservative. Like, I can tell you once we're off air and whatnot.
Yeah.
But he's that one kid from Wisconsin who did a CPAC speech a couple of years ago, and
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you know who I'm talking.
Yes, I am vaguely aware of them.
Yeah. So this same person actually wrote a piece, recently about the whole Milo thing. Pretty much where this person claimed that that Milo had personally attacked him on Twitter, and I was there for that. And what happened was, Milo, back when he was on Twitter, tweeted out, feminism is cancer, and that's one of his little bits that he does. And this guy took it, seriously, to the like the literal interpretation, and was like, how dare you say that feminism is cancer? And I said to this kid, I said, oh my God, he's not literally saying that feminism is cancer. And then Milo tweets back at both of us and says, no, actually, I am saying that feminism is cancer, because if you look at it, it's a societal cancer. In some ways, it's worse than, cancer, just because it affects entire societies. Which, granted, that may have been Milo just being, Milo. But
yeah.
I mean, that point is kind of true, and so ever since then, this kid has had me blocked, and so I can't DM him, I can't Facebook message him to get him on the show for a debate or anything like that, and it's just
Well,
great.
what I find fascinating is that you have the Trump people that are willing to debate the issues, or just any contestation that the Never Trumpers do, but the Never Trumpers never go. Well, I will say I'll disagree with you on that. Ben Shapiro might be the only guy that actually does that. That Ben Shapiro might actually come for a debate, but I don't. Go ahead.
Well, and Ben Shapiro, and this is where I get like a little pissed off with Trump supporters and the alt-right, is because I do feel like Ben Shapiro is like the one exception to the rule, because Ben Shapiro did say that, look, he said, look, I'm not a fan of Trump, and I'm not a fan of Milo, but if you feel that you need to vote for Trump to stop Hillary, he said, believe me, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I disagree with it. I disagree with the premise, but I can see where you're coming from. And to me, if that had been the entire Never Trump movement, I wouldn't have minded them so much. But like when Glenn, the thing that really bothered me, and I used to be a Glenn Beck fan, as I mentioned on your stream last night, but when he called Milo, Joseph Goebbels, comparing him to one of Hitler. Yeah, I mean, I had the same reaction you just did. I mean, the Milo, he may be a lot of things, but I mean, he's.
Yes, the flamboyantly gay Jew is exactly like Joseph Goebbels, marching people to the gas chambers, and I know, but like it makes no sense to me because whenever Milo did his shtick with the Trump thing, it was always a segment. It was never the entirety. He effectively what Glenn Beck was angry about was that Milo, who let's be honest here, is probably infinitely more popular than Glenn at this point. Or was it a year? I still say that he is, but he was infinitely more popular. He had more. He was gaining influence as his tour was going on, and he had a position that Glenn didn't agree with, or at the very least, Glenn's sponsors didn't agree with. Because I mean, we could always talk about how I really don't think this is about principle with these people. I just think it's the people that back them at the end of the day that don't like Trump.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. You mentioned one of Glenn Beck's favorite buzzwords, which is principle, and my whole response to that is, Trump isn't principled, and it's like, well, okay, so Trump's not the perfectly conservative, principled conservative. Neither is Hillary Clinton, though, dude. And
well, the issue is what principles are supposed to be of conservative. As far as are you talking about social conservatism? Because social conservatism died, dude. It got its ass kicked.
Right. Well, why? I mean, and that's the whole other thing too is. What one person might consider, to be a principled conservative, like, may differ from, like, another person. Like, okay, for me, example, me personally, like, in terms of the gay marriage thing, like, in terms of social conservatism, like, I don't care at all, just because the Supreme Court already, ruled on that, and, at this point, we're not going back, and
well, there's no desire to do it. They would pretty much. Trump in his administration. I know people get, especially my more left leaning friends, get really scared about that because of Mike Pence's, and I disagree with them because I don't think Mike Pence is, one, he's not in charge of the administration, and two, he's not. I don't think he's as zealotous as people lead him out to believe. At least I haven't seen anything that indicates he is. Actually, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and no, I agree with you. I mean, I think I did some research because I also had some some lefty friends who were worried about that. The last time that Mike Pence talked about any of that stuff, was like from 1996, which was a year after I was born. So, I mean that's 21 years ago. And,
Yeah.
like, okay, so he said something 21 years ago. He hasn't, like, people are afraid that, he's going to, like, round up the gays, in vans and then, like, send them to, like, a electroshock, like, treatment centers, like, like, that's not going to happen. And even if you wanted that to happen, like, the infrastructure to do that isn't there.
Yeah.
Because, like,
well, I mean, there would be a giant pushback. I mean, and I'm not just saying, legislatively, people would be out there in the streets just kick this. They would fight people. There would be, like, skirmishes in the street if that were to happen. But the hysteria around Pence and the Trump administration as a whole, it causes more problems than just coming to the table and just talking about sensible issues you have with the administration. Like, talk about policy problems you have. Don't ever go after the personalities of the people in the cabinet. Go after their policy, and you'll see some sense there.
Right. No, I completely agree with you. You know what? So like, I mean, like, I don't even know like really where to approach this from, but kind of getting back to Milo. So I think you're of the same opinion that I am, that this was an inside job of sorts. Now, do you think there's anyone in particular who's responsible for this?
Oh, um, I can't, if I was to say wholeheartedly that yes, it was this guy. Look, I'll do that on my show, but I'm doing you a courtesy, and I won't say yes, it was this guy. I have a feeling that it was a couple of people. I think it was a conglomeration of people. I think it was a certain presidential candidate who came late to the race, who was a former spook, and I think that should concern people if he's still trying to have influence after the election. And I say this: why would he want that? I think the guy that we're talking about wants to be part of the culture war, and he wants to bring back social conservatism. There are the sort of the, I don't know the best way to describe it. The best way to describe it are shills that just say whatever their sponsors want them to say for ad revenue and stuff. And then there are legitimate ideologues who don't like Milo because he represents something that they don't think is conservatism. And I think these people got together, whether that 4chan infograph was right, and there actually is a secret mailing list between these outlets or not. I think they got into contact with each other, and I think they made a concerted effort to go after Milo as sort of like a build-up to maybe going after Bannon, but I doubt they do that. Let me ask you something. Do you think they've succeeded with Milo? Because
well, okay. So this is another topic where I do kind of want to get into, because yes, I do believe that Milo. I believe that Milo can recover, and I believe that if he plays it smart, he can recover. But he has to be careful from now on to really make sure that he work. And like, I hate to say this, because honestly, like, it's his free speech and he should be able to say what he wants, but he's really going to need to watch what he says in the future.
He does need to develop a filter, because these people have basically put a target on him,
right?
And they're gonna keep going after him no matter what he does. And I think largely this first little attack kind of fell through because they did. I mean, look at what's been happening the past week. You had certain clips coming out from people like Bill Maher and George Takei, and there was no pushback against these comments. And in George Takei's case, it was almost word for word what happened to Milo. So why was there no push there? These people don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to this.
Well, and not only that, but then I guess someone sent me a link to George Takei is actually the worst of them, because not only did he say this stuff, but then I guess like later on, in that same segment on the Howard Stern show, like one of George Takei's fans came in the studio and took his pants off and had George Takei give him a handy, on air, on live, on camera, and like I didn't watch it or anything like that, but someone sent me the image of it, blurred out, and I'm like, whoa, so they're complaining about Milo, being a perv, and yet George Takei is, literally jerking off a 25-year-old, 26-year-old
Dude. I mean, yeah. If that's what that's Howard's show, he's always been the guy that pushed the edge. But
oh yeah,
hey, and here's the thing though, it's like if we're gonna complain about this, if we're gonna complain about perverts, how come we never go after like the Catholic priests? I mean,
yeah,
we never do that, and this is coming from a former Catholic. I mean, this is. I don't get this. The purity test on the right annoys me because it makes no sense. I mean, I know at least a good chunk of those senators have got mistresses, or at least have had extramarital affairs. I mean, that was the biggest. That's one of the biggest problems with a good chunk of the moralists on the right, is that they don't practice what they preach.
Yeah. Well, and in speaking as someone who does consider himself to be a social conservative, like my whole perspective on that, like the gay marriage thing is people go, oh, you say you're a social conservative, but yet you don't talk about gay marriage on your show or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, because I believe that, yeah, like I think that. Yeah, like in a small part it is a sin, but I also think that like that's something that is
that's between them and God, if
yeah,
you really want to get there.
yeah. I mean, and that's what I've always said, that it's between them and God, and like one day they're going to have to answer to God about that, and and that's between them and God, and it's not really my job to intercede on their part, especially if I don't know someone. Now, if it's like a family member, and they're like screwing around with like prostitutes, and that, and this is if they're gay or straight, and they're endangering other people, then that's one thing, like if they're actually causing like a risk, but I don't like these conservatives who go around like proselytizing like morality to other people. It just that's where I got accused of being a libertarian. So
well, I mean, it's just weird to me that we're still having this talk. We're still having this talk 20 years after we've been getting our butts kicked left and right. We're just getting hammered on these stupid social wedge issues, when really we could just say, you know what, I have my beliefs, I'm not going to push it on anyone, and I won't proselytize anymore. But no, we don't learn. We don't learn the fact that we don't adapt. And now this time we did. I was very hopeful because Trump was that kind of guys like me who would traditionally be more left of center as a millennial looked at Trump and said, you know what, I like some of his ideas, and I like the fact that he's not this moral crusader. It's nice to have that on the GOP. And it was great when he held up the flag at the RNC, when he held up the LGBT flag. It was great.
That leads me to ask you, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but are you yourself gay, or?
No, I'm straight, but
okay, okay, yeah, I didn't think so. I mean, I'm straight too, but yeah, I agree with you about the,
Well, the thing though is I have a lot of, you have gay Republicans, people that are more, oddly enough, gays are more socially conservative than a lot of people would dare to think.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. Even transgender people are more conservative than people would tend to think, and just because they are actually trying to fit some kind of gender norm. I mean, that's another thing that people just need to. just because someone falls under the LGBT blanket doesn't mean that they are a natural leftist. We should be talking to these people. We should be making inroads. And not just with them. We should be doing it with – this is my main criticism with Republicans in almost every state. They never go to the black neighborhoods. They never go to the Latino neighborhoods. They never go to the Chinese, the native. They never go to the resis. They never go there. They never go there and talk to them and actually get what their issues are. Because for some reason they think they can just rely on the suburbanites. And, I'll say this, the suburbanites and the working class won Trump the presidency, but what I was really looking at was how many people of the minorities he was bringing in. And I was very surprised at how many he was bringing in this time around. I was happy to see that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing about this whole Trump movement too. Take Diamond and Silk for example. Two black women who 4 years ago were proud Obama supporters. They flipped 180 and went for Trump because they said that they saw what Obama was doing and they didn't like him, but I guess Trump was the only one who actually reached out to the black community and acknowledged that the black community does have some specific problems. That's why the whole white supremacist angle coming from the Never Trump movement, that supposedly the Trumpers or the alt-righters or whatever they're calling us now are all white supremacists because
how are they going to square, because they're still going on with the anti-Semitism, the anti-Semitism issue. Benjamin Netanyahu, the goddamn minister or the prime minister of Israel, and Donald Trump are best friends. They've known each other for years. He let his daughter marry an Orthodox Jew. He has Orthodox Jewish grandkids, and it blows your mind.
Yeah, but his son-in-law, who's a Jew, is a top advisor in the White House. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my
Jared.
head.
His name's Jared, and he's a cool dude.
Have you actually met him before?
I've watched him speak once, and I was like, yeah, I can kind of take the measure of the guy. He was very much. He's a quiet guy, but I do get a good feeling off of him, and he seems cool.
I think Ivanka is kind of the alpha in that relationship. All
the Trumps are like that. That's just the calling card of a Trump.
Yeah, except for Tiffany, she kind of stays quiet, but I don't know. She's still pretty young too, but I mean that's the whole other thing. Is the whole anti-Semitism angle, and we didn't have time to cover it in the group chat that we were in yesterday, but I guess at the beginning of the of CPAC, the head or whatever publicly distanced CPAC from the alt-right, and I'll go back to what Martin, one of our people on the panel said. What is the alt-right? Because everyone's definition, kind of
it differs wildly. It's just, and I describe it as this: it's a loose collection of people that have looked at the policies of globalization and have said, yeah, that's going to hurt us both economically, culturally, and the mere act of governance. We cannot do it. And they come from everywhere. That's the crazy thing, is that you have libertarians, paleoconservatives, you even have some neoconservatives coming on here. You even have you have a loose collection of people that see that and say no. Now, is there an element of ethno-nationalism? Yeah. Yes, there is. They are the fringe of the fringe, though. They are so out there that most people don't really care. And are they supremacists? No, they're separatists. Some of them are legitimate. Maybe we should carve up the states and give a portion to blacks, give a portion to Asians, and then give a portion to Hispanics. But those guys again, they're a minority of the minority. Richard Spencer and his ilk are a minority.
Yeah.
The alt-right has now been divided into two camps, which I think people should be produced with alacrity. You have the alt-right, which I kind of am a part of just for the fact that I don't fall in line with a good chunk of the mainstream conservatism. But you also have Lawrence Southern that's also on the alt-right. Milo could even be considered alt-right, but he would be on the far fringes of that as well. He'd be more centrist on a lot of these issues. But yeah, I mean, it's when you are against something that doesn't have a proper definition, you're basically fighting a lost war.
Yeah, and I mean, and so yeah, and I mean, I like your term that you coined there, which is, I mean, I think you said like alt-light, if I'm not mistaken, not alt-right, but alt-light with an L, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't coin it. That's kind of been, I don't, because the thing is, it's much more. There's been kind of a war going on these past couple months with different factions trying to say, oh no, we're the fake. Ever since Spencer brought himself out there at the, I don't know what it was for. I think it was some nationalist convention or something where he did the hail our people, and he did the quote unquote Roman salute. Which was stupid.
Yeah.
Richard, you're a moron. You're a moron, dude. You had everything, but you had to do it. You had to do it. Just from a strategy standpoint, that was stupid. But it fractured the group. These people, and a lot of these people just we're gonna stay away from these kind of people now. And that's not to say that I have to make this point. People on the alt-right side and not the alt-light side, they're not bad people. The problem is that they don't think before they act. That's the vast majority of them. A lot of them are good intentioned. I'm sure some of them are complete bastards, but these are again the minority of the minority of the minority. It's just people that don't think. But that's just a little ramble I was on.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. And that's the whole other thing that pissed me off about, when this whole Milo scandal broke, is all these, again, going back to the whole problem with never Trumpers, all of these, conservatives who were quote unquote against Milo, like I saw them on Twitter, they were attacking Ariana Rollins, and like they were calling her like a white nationalist, and
Wait, Ari is a white nationalist now? I didn't know that.
Well, despite that she's like what I had her on
Mexican? Half Mexican and what, half Welsh?
Yeah,
is that?
Yeah, I think that's what she told me. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to my own show that I did with her. But yeah, she's like half Cuban or something like that, and like and she's not bad looking either.
No.
I'll say that. I'll say that too, right off the bat. But
yeah, you kind of have to. But
yeah.
No. But yeah, it's ridiculous. The people that they label themselves with are just stupid.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's like Josh Lakesh, a good friend of Milo, who I've also had on my show. Like, yeah, it's like, yeah, he's white, like he's white as white goes, but he's also Jew himself, so like,
See, that's another thing though, that people want to say that, oh, whites are Jews now, Jews are white now. So I mean, it's whenever you tarnish somebody with the label of white supremacist, they don't have the word means nothing anymore, because everyone can be a white supremacist.
Yeah, and I've also talked about on my show individually, like that's a huge problem because if you get if everyone can get labeled as like a Nazi, then what happens when an actual Nazi or an actual white supremacist shows up? They slip through the cracks and do horrible shit. So,
Yeah, it's just I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do because it's just this weird. It's such a weird position that whenever you make these arguments, or whenever you put these labels on people, you immediately cause the room for someone that actually does fit the term to come up, and nobody's going to care. I mean, this is the problem with, like, I don't know if we want to talk about this, but people in the media losing their collective minds over every action that Trump takes, every single action he takes, they collectively go crazy over. When he actually does do something that's really messed up, no one's going to listen now because they're starting to tune it out.
Yeah. No, exactly. And, people were freaking out yesterday. Like, my cousin, who is an uber lefty, was freaking out yesterday on Facebook because he was saying that by disinviting CNN from the White House, like, Trump is censoring the First Amendment. And it's like, no, he's not censoring the First Amendment. He's not actually going to CNN and, shutting down their offices. Although I personally think that would be
funny.
I think that would be quite I think that would be quite awesome if he did, but no, I mean they're like, oh my god, they banned CNN from the White House, and it's like, hey, it wasn't even like a big formal press conference. Like, what? I guess like Spicer was doing it from his own office or something like that, and then
yeah, I mean it was just this random. It was just a random thing to happen, though, wasn't it? It wasn't even an official. Did they revoke their press passes? Is what I'm saying.
No. From what I read, it was like an entirely like separate event where Spicer was like, hey, let's have like an impromptu press conference. Oh, and by the way, CNN, ABC, the New York Times, the LA Times, like, they're not invited. So, it wasn't an actual like formal weekly address type thing.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so stupid. And Trump was right in his CPAC speech. Yesterday, the media is the enemy of the people, and I've been saying that longer than Trump's been in the public eye as a conservative. So,
yeah, I mean, I get upset when people want to say, oh, he's censoring the press. It's like, no, he's not. He's censoring corporations. At the end of the day, unless we want to be honest and go the Mitt Romney route and say, yeah, corporations have rights now. To basically, they have First Amendment rights, that's stupid. But he's just it wasn't even him. It was just Spicer, right? It was just Spicer.
Yeah.
So I mean, so they're dishonest about that, and that's again, it's caused that whole hashtag. Just to plead to everybody, can we stop with the hashtag whenever there's even a minute thing that you just don't like? Can we just file that away as something that needs to stop?
Yes. Same thing with like, I love how they're all like these new national holidays that like pop up like every day too. Like just kind of on like an off topic, like now there's like National Cupcake Day, and then there's National like Soccer Ball Day, and like I'm like, can we just stop with like the national holidays out the wazoo? So, but yeah, no, I agree with you. All these like media out, well these hashtags, they don't do anything either. It's like, when Michelle Obama did the hashtag Bring Our Girls Home, did that actually bring any of those girls home from Boko Haram? No.
No. Well, I mean, they never even talked about the fact that. Well, here's a little bit of the gynocentrism of the left. They never talked about the fact that they killed like 50 boys and young men during that incursion. ISIS literally lined them up and shot them all. They never talked about it. We had to pry it from them, saying, "Hey, what happened to all the guys they took?" And this is, "Oh no, they got shot. They're all dead."
Yeah, well, and going back to the whole Milo thing, this all kind of ties together with the whole thing about man bashing too. Joe Rogan, the podcast, he brought up a great point the other day where I can't remember how he got off this topic with Gavin McInnes, but it's because they were talking about child molestation, and what exactly that looked like in relation to Milo, and Rogan brought up the point that when it comes to sexualization of children, which is what the left all of a sudden, seems to care about, but a couple of years ago, I guess there was this commercial, like, for one of those, like, all for men type things, like one of those beard growing products.
Mm-hmm.
And they had, I guess the way Rogan describes the commercial, like, the commercial is, there's like a baby, like a literal infant boy, like, dressed up, and he's in, like, a tuxedo, and you see him, he pulls up in this Porsche, and this, like, hot 20-something, gal in like a dress gets in, and they go to the club, and then you see him, in the club, and he's, like, dancing with all of these, like, hot women, and, like, that's the ad. And Joe Rogan goes, okay, imagine if they had done the same commercial with, like, but the gender roles were reversed. Like, if it were, like, a baby girl, and she were going with, like, some hot guy, to a club. Like, if the roles were reversed, whoever made that commercial would be in jail, for promoting pedophilia, on, like, a baby girl or something like that. Like, and that was his whole point, is there seems to be this whole double standard coming from the left, whereas, like, sexualizing boys isn't as bad, but, God forbid, I'm not saying that girls getting sexualized is good either. Like, that's not my point. My point is
it's just the double standards, it just seems to be a reoccurring thing that they hold one account for. They hold one person. Or they hold two different standards for boys and girls. Which, okay, yeah, I can grant it that might be justified or not. But can we be? I wish they were just honest about it.
Yeah, yeah. That's all I want from them is honesty when it comes to this topic. So, yeah.
I gotta read this out because I'm on Twitter while we're doing this, and Trump just because I don't know if when you watch this, I don't know what the reaction's gonna be, but Thomas Perez has just been named the head of the DNC. He's now the chairman. He beat out Keith Ellison, I think fairly handily or pretty narrowly. And Trump says, "Congratulations, Thomas Perez, who has just been named chairman of the DNC. I could not be happier for him or for the Republican Party."
Oh God, it's stuff like that makes me love President Trump, and even with all of his flaws. But by the way, who is this Thomas guy then?
Perez was I think he was some kind of advisor to Obama back in the day. I know that he's more in line with the Clintons' way of thinking, which is it spells doom for the. Again, it's what I've been saying now since the election. They've learned nothing. They've learned absolutely nothing from their mistakes. They're absolute just ass kicking. They've learned nothing. They haven't. They're going down the same path they've been going down for 20 years. You know, our loss on the electoral will be damned.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if and Bill Maher is right about this. I mean, I hate Bill Maher. I seldom disagree with him, but Bill Maher back in January and it wasn't January. It was right after the election, so in early December, in one of his segments, he had said that the reason why the Democrats lost is because they've become the party of fake outrage. They've become the party of, of all these niche causes, like, tranny bathrooms and, like gay marriage, like shit that at the end of the day is trivial to most people. And if they got rid of the whole social justice, cancer that's taken them over, then they might actually, be relatable, again.
Well, yeah, and I can't believe we're actually giving advice to the opposition, but you know what? I actually want a good opposition, because if you keep just making Republicans take seats, there is a downside to that, is that we just become an echo chamber, like a legitimate echo chamber, and that's got its own issues. But the Democrats are messing up. They're gonna. I'm gonna make a prediction on your show now. I'm gonna say within the next 2 years, when we reach election year again, when everyone's up for re-election, all the senators and the like, when the midterms comes around, they're gonna lose more seats. That's just what's gonna happen. I also think that a lot of Republicans are gonna lose too. And I can name you a couple right now. Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and maybe Ryan. Nealon might actually win next time around, because people are just tired of Ryan.
Yeah, well, out of all those names, those aren't necessarily people I would mind losing either.
That's the thing. It's just dead weight. The dead weight is going to get lost. But as far as the Democrats go, I don't know, man. Liz Warren's going to be out too. Bernie Sanders is going to be dead. Oh, come on. He's in both the electoral capability and the most literal sense of the word. I don't know, man.
That one did surprise me. That one did surprise me either way if he actually ends up croaking. But
yeah, I mean, it's. I you know what I love about the Bernie supporters, man? They're already planning for Bernie 2020. It's like the guy's going to be what, 80?
So are the Hillary. Well, so are the Hillary supporters, and I have to give them this, because back during 2008 they were like, oh well, maybe in 2016, then 2016 rolls around, she gets beat. Oh well, maybe 2020 she'll finally get in. So I gotta hand it to him. At least some of the diehards are. All right, folks, please go ahead and either click to play or download Part 2 of my interview with Kasey Dynneson on Part 2 of the Whitfield Report podcast for this week. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you over on Side 2.